Is anger bad? Well, when we think of anger, we think of the strong expressions of it. We think of violence, of abuse, of domination, of control, of force in every way through behaviors, through actions, through words, uh, through attitudes. We think of criminality, we think of violence, including physical violence, emotional violence, verbal violence, psychological violence. We think of rape versus love. So when we think of anger, we think of bad. Angry people are bad people. Um, and when we connect with anger within ourselves, we might have this instinctive protective reaction against our own feelings of anger, feeling that I'm not an angry person. I don't want to be angry because I don't want to be bad. Being angry means again being hateful, being controlling, being dominant, being overpowering, being abusive in all sorts of ways. And I I'm not that person. I don't want to be that person. And we don't know how to cope with that, how to deal with that, how to keep our integrity and our healthy view of ourselves. And at the same time, be with the anger, accept the anger when it arises. And then we tend to hide away from anger. We tend to mask it. We tend to cover it up, to put it in more subtle ways. We tend to suppress it, to push it back, because it feels bad, it is bad, and we associate it with our identity. I am bad, I am a bad person. So, in that way, our view gets clouded and we don't see anger for what it truly is. We don't see its more hidden forms of expression that could be in aggression, not just in a very strong, loud way, but microaggression through criticism, through bitterness, through the need of revenge, through grumpiness, through criticism, through sarcasm. So the more subtle ways of the passive aggressiveness rather than overt, direct, expressed, active aggressiveness or anger. So anger, it's here, and somehow we are forced to dance through it in different ways, in different coping ways, whether to associate with it and allow it to be our main way of relating to others and assuming the personality of an angry person, because I might have learned that anger it's better than being overpowered, than being weak, than being abused or treated poorly or violated. So then there is kind of the survival of the fittest principle. Who is the alpha one? Who is the dominant one? Who is the one that can get his or her way? And how can I make that happen? So then there is this dual choice. Am I the weakest one or the strongest one? Can I get my way in the world uh, by being who I am? Or do I need to resort to forceful ways to get my way, to set up the boundaries, to push the limits, to push back, to be able to say no? So, what is really anger? Let's understand it a little bit before we make a judgment if it's good or bad, before being trapped in it. Let's understand it deeper so we can get to the point where we can choose freely the coping ways that we want to use in order to make it into the world and beyond it. So, anger psychologically is a response. It's a signal. It's an emotional, mental, physiological response. A response to what? To a threat, to an attack, to something that is not right, is not fair, is not just, is not how it's supposed to be, it's not how we expect it to be. It's a response to a violation, to a pushing, to a force. So now the response is not just with the fear, the response is not always to what is as is in reality in the present, but most of the time the response to the attack, to the violation, to the injustice, to the offense, to the disrespect, the response is to the meaning that we give to what's happening, to what we perceive to be an attack or a violation or a push of boundaries or a threat, right? So it's very important to acknowledge this, to realize that what really activates this response is not, most of the time, is not a real current present real attack, but it's a response to our interpretation, to the story, to the meaning that we give to what happens. So let's say if somebody cuts us into the traffic, let's use this example, is the least personal one that we can all relate to. So somebody cuts us off in the traffic and we have an angry response. Okay. So what do I respond to in that moment? Is the factual cutting off in the line, is it to that person? I might not know that person. I might not know their context. I might not know why they do that. But I respond to what's triggering me in that triggered in me in that moment. I respond to my interpretation, the meaning that I give. He acted in this way, that means that he's cutting me off, that he's inconsiderate, that he thinks he's better than me and he has the right to do that because he's bigger, stronger, and I will prove them wrong. I will prove that I'm not to be messed up with. And then I have this anger reaction, and it's activated often without my conscious will. It's triggered something in me. It's triggered through that interaction, through that action. Okay. And how do I know when it's my perceived meaning to that situation, or what's really happening? Sometimes somebody during our meeting yesterday gave the example of being in a car accident, somebody hitting them from the back. And the first reaction was, what's going on here and how they could do that, our instinctive reaction. But when they stopped and they connected to the other driver, they found out that actually that person was really rushing to the hospital where their wife was, and they were in great distress. They heard some really bad news about the wife's health, and they weren't in the right state of mind, and very, very, very mindless, very preoccupied, and that's how the accident happened. They didn't see the car in front of them. And then, as a result of this understanding, the reaction, the inner reaction inside changed from anger and resentment and fury. It changed to true understanding of the other person's perspective. It changed to actually compassion and kindness and softness. So the same situation, the same accident, we had different reactions when we, as a result of what we thought was happening, and then the reaction was significantly different when we learned what actually happened from the other point of view. So this is a beautiful example, simple, beautiful example, showing us and making us aware to what we are responding. So, anger again, it's a response. It's a very strong physiological response. It's like a strong flame that we feel it in our body. It clouds our mind, it clouds our vision. As they say, when we are angry, we make the best speech we will ever regret. And it's definitely very, very true. I can testify it myself. It's happened so many times that I can vouch for it. It is when we are angry, we make the best speech. It feels the best, like we really feel that we have to tell the truth, to tell it off, to really make things clear, to communicate in all the ways we feel compelled to communicate in the moment. And then it feels later on when we cool down, when we have the other reactions, is the reaction of uh, having a bowl of rice spilled on the kitchen floor, and then it's us that have to pick up each drop, each piece, and clean it up. And then it triggers the reactions of others. Anger begets anger. It's contagious. The flame starting from a little spark. They're so inflammable. Somehow it makes everyone justified. Once there is the first spark, everybody around gets connected to that fire and brings their own fire, and soon enough um, the whole house is burning emotionally, psychologically, and everything is escalated so fast when we are in that, especially when our rage is triggered, when our frustration and everything that actually has been built in there, accumulated in that inner volcano for each of us. And the more we have been trying to contain that volcano with its whole lava, its whole fire within, the more we try to control it and be good. So I'm not an angry person. I'm not a bad person. I protect my sense of self, and how I want to view myself, and how I want others to view me. The more we hold that in, we suppress it, repress it, we push it, we hide it. Anger, because it's a very, very strong energy on the map of consciousness, is at the level of 150 at the power of 10. So comparing to guilt or shame, it's a very, very, very strong, intense energy. So when we hold it back, when we put it under this pressure cooker, then and it has no way to be released, then it builds up and it tends to explode sometimes at the smallest, most insignificant trigger. So it's important again for once to see in the Course of Miracle, it says that we are never upset for the reasons we think. So it's not really, most of the time, at least 90% of the times, we are not really upset for what's in front of us. What's in front of us, we can have multiple responses to that based on the inner state, where we are coming from when we are present with that situation. So anger often comes from way, way, way back. Again, that container, that volcano, has been piling up numerous experiences of unfairness, of injustice, of being made to feel small, to be afraid, to have no power to react, to be powerless, to be diminished, to be our dignity to be taken away, our boundaries, physical, emotional, psychological boundaries to be pushed. Somebody, something in our environment, especially early on in our life, um, overpowered us, had the power to push us, to force us, to make us feel small, to make us feel that I have no choice. And all of that because in those situations, anger and pushing back might not have been a real option, because especially when we are young as children, when we are in a position of not being able to be in our power to respond on an equal ground, this on a personal level, but also on a society level. We know, or family context, we know of family abuse and violence. We know in society there is, in our history, there has been slavery and discrimination and abuse on all levels, even in our work environment. So, directly or indirectly, aggression in the most expressive forms or the subtle forms, with microaggression and micro injustice and all of those subtle forms that sometimes are even more dangerous, if you will, because they are not direct, they are not transparent, but there is this hidden, confusing mask where we don't know, is this true, is just in my mind or not, and feeling that I don't have the power to respond, to protect myself, I don't have the power to push back. I'm helpless, I'm powerless. So the current anger, whether in the smaller, softer ways, through chronic criticism or irritability or frustration or being pissed off or being grumpy, or through the more active, stronger ways, again through verbal or emotional or physical, overpowering abuse, domination, yelling, screaming, violence, physical violence. So always, no matter subtle or direct, are part of the same domain, of the same anger. And it's important to acknowledge that, and at the same time to see anger for what it is, which again, it's a response. It's an emotional, mental, psychological, and physiological response. And there is also the difference between anger as an emotions and also anger as a state of consciousness, as a state of being. And again, the difference is between transient weather and climate. I can have an angry reaction to what's happening in the moment. It comes and goes, and I have the ability to choose how to respond to that. Or I can choose anger to make it my home, my state. That's where there is this identification with the anger, where I believe that it's through anger only that I can get my way, I can protect myself, I can set up boundaries for myself, I can be the dominant one. I am better off in the world if I associate, I choose anger as a beingness, as my part of my personality, as my home, as my go-to response. Or anger is, again, is just an emotion, is just a state. So again, it's very important to have this distinction, uh, and knowing that in truth I'm not the anger. In our language, we say, I am angry, I am upset, I am mad, I am pissed off, I am. So we use to our language, we use the I am statement associated to our feelings. But that's not in truth, because I am not what I feel. In fact, I'm the one experiencing that feeling, whether there is sadness or anger or upset or frustration or guilt or shame. So, who I am is the one that has the experience of this emotion. Without me, this emotion cannot exist. Just like without me, who I am in truth, my thoughts cannot exist. I am the one who I am. I'm not the anger. I'm not the upset. I'm not the sadness. I'm not the shame. I'm not the guilt. I am who I am. I am that I am as I was created to be. And in the moment, I have the experience of this reaction through anger, through upset. So, in this way, there is no threat to our identity. Experiencing the anger as a reaction doesn't make me an angry person, doesn't make me the anger. The anger is what I experience now. I can choose to associate with the anger. In fact, when we choose this response, often when we learn anger as a coping mechanism to life difficulties, then I associate, I partnership, I develop a relationship with the anger. I develop an attachment to the anger. And then there is this merging in my view of myself. It's not who I truly am, but I believe that I am this angry person, that I'm always angry, I'm always mad. This is who I am. There is nothing I can do about that. So let it be it, and let me at least make the most out of it, based on the principle that, as they say, if I cannot be loved, then it's better to be feared. At least I can get what I need, what I want. I protect myself. Um, since I cannot be loved, since I cannot do it through love, I will do it through force. And this is another important thing to see, because at the core, at the core of anger and all the other states, there is actually a call for love, for connection, for oneness, for wholeness. But again, I learned through my life experiences to use anger as a coping mechanism to make it into the world. And again, sometimes to the point of identifying myself with it, of making it part of my personality, and forgetting who I am in truth. So having this distinction, this clarity in terms of who I am, what anger is. So it is just a response, it is a coping mechanism, it is a learned. I wasn't born angry. We weren't born angry. It is a learned, just like fear, a learned response. And I might have seen in my environment, especially early on in my life, that through anger, through overpowering, I can get what I want, what I need. I can protect myself because there is nobody else that can protect me anyway. I have to take it in my own hands. I have to do justice to myself. I have to make myself stronger and better than everybody else, so I'm not the weakest link in the chain. But at the core, there is a confusion, a great confusion when we talk about the state of anger. The confusion between power and force. We confuse force with true power. And on the map of consciousness, anger is the second last state before we enter the realm of power. So anger at the state of 150 and followed by pride at 175. Anger, it's under the realm of forceful states. And why force? Because I am disconnected. I don't know my true power. I am not in my power. And because I'm not connected, I'm not aligned, I'm not within my power. My power is my inner power, my inner strength, connected vertically, connected to the source of power. Because I'm not in it, I'm disconnected. I'm actually in fear. I believe I'm weak. I believe I have no power. I believe that I cannot protect myself. I believe that I cannot get what I want. And then I have to resort to force instead of power. Again, there is the critical aspect of the state of anger is remembering, connecting, aligning with our true power and releasing the force. When we connect with our power, force is not needed. Force, again, even physically, every force activates counter forces. It activates resistances. It activates pushes back. We can't really get what we truly want, because even though we might get it in the moment out of fear, out of overpowering, out of manipulation, in different ways, we don't really get what we truly want. And that's where the metaphor of um, uh, force versus power, it's very well, can be very well seen in the difference between rape and love, making love. Sometimes it's the same act, but it's coming through force, through overpowering, through dominance, through manipulation without consent, or the same actions are joined freely, free consent, free, no domination, no force, no manipulation, freely. And that's love. So when we don't believe that we can get what we need, what we want, security, safety, love, acceptance, then we try to get it, to make it our own way in different ways, to get it our way. And then we will use force, right? So again, I find this example very, very explicit of this significant difference, life to death, heaven to hell difference between force and power. And the state of anger is a state of consciousness, and even psychologically, its purpose, it's a developmental stage. All the states on the map of consciousness, I reiterate this, it's important to see them not as good as or bad. Again, is anger bad? Is shame bad? Is guilt bad? Is desire bad or good? None of them. It's beyond good or bad. None of them are good or bad, but we can very well see them as growing, developmental stages. Just like a child is growing to different stages, is learning how to walk, to talk, how to develop its intelligence, how to develop different, to mature different aspects of oneself. These states of consciousness are developmental stages, growing stages. We need to go through them to be able to meet their function. We cannot skip them. We cannot bypass them, because if we bypass them, they are still there. They are in more subtle, hidden forms, and we hide. We pretend. We put the mask. We look like this nice person, and then the kind, and inside we grow our shadows, we grow our monsters. There are so many cases of people who are in jail, who committed the most atrocious crimes, and outside their neighbors could never tell that they are bad people, and they are not bad people. But again, this suppression, this space where we grow, we feed our shadows, we feed our dark wolves. They are there, and when they are hidden, they have more power, right? So the function of anger is to learn, to connect with, to step and be in our power, not in force. To have the clarity between what true inner power is, inner strength. And yes, yes, the greatest power of all is the power of the state of love. Love not as an emotion, not as a behavior, as an act. Love as a state of beingness. Complete security, complete invulnerability. Being love itself. Nothing can truly harm us. It has no power. No power, nothing could have power when we are truly being in that state. So, as children, not only at the age of childhood, but as children, us, no matter the age, being in our developmental stages, in this childlike states, in this case, in the anger state, when we get stuck in the anger state, not just again having transiently the response is sometimes the right response through anger. And this is very important again, like when we are in the anger state, all we can see is the outside. We use the mechanism of projection. We project outside into others. Who is to blame? Who wronged me? Who I need to get revenge to? Who do I need to find? Who attacked me and I need to attack back? It's out there. In anger, in the state of anger, we are blinded to see ourselves, but we see the other. And we have the strong belief that we have to resolve the situation. We have to bring ourselves into the safety, protective, right place, just place, by acting on the outside. And sometimes that action is the right call. If we want to step out of an abusive situation of, I don't know, humanity slavery, let's say, of truly unjust, rather than making ourselves staying in the state of shame or guilt or powerlessness, of apathy, anger actually is the right call for action, to be able to, while connecting with our own power, to take the right action, to stop the damage, to put a stop, actually, to put boundaries, to say, no, no, this is not all right. It stops right here. So there is a right call for action. In reality, we don't have to take it on ourselves and disconnect ourselves from the creation, but we have to be aware, where is this action coming from within me? Is it coming from the place of ego, which means the old patterns, the old programs, the automatic ways that have been inscripted there, and I'm being taken over by them? I'm not in charge. I'm not the one responding here, but they are the old automatic ways, the subconscious, unseen ways that they take over, and they use me, they use my body, they use my words, they use me like a puppet to get its way? Or am I responding from the true self, the me as I truly am, the me that is present right here, right now, that it's not overreactive, that doesn't just jump in and allowing my whole system to be run by the master of anger or of the ego, but I am present. I am the one responding to this. I'm awake. I'm conscious versus unconscious. I'm aware. I'm present. I choose to respond with anger to this. And how do I use anger? I use anger. It's not the anger using me, overpowering me, because then I'm truly powerless. I'm truly what I'm afraid to be, which is weak and powerless. I cannot have it my way. And then I give my power away to the anger itself to on my behalf, but I'm not in my choice. I'm not the one choosing. It's the anger choosing, using me, and I let it use me. I'm not truly in control. I'm not truly the one in charge. So to take my power back, it's very helpful to put the pause button. This is essential. It's a very simple step. Taking 3 deep breaths, breathing out, and claiming the time and space to choose my response. It is always a good idea when I feel overflooded, even physiologically, with this reaction, with this fire, with these flames within me of anger. It's a gift to myself and to others. It's also a very efficient way. It saves me lots of time, to put a pause button, to not to get into that urgency mode, and to claim the time for myself to say, okay, I will come back to this. I don't have to respond to this right now. I can take the time for this psychological, emotional hygiene. I can go to the washroom. I can go for a walk. I can drink some water. I can breathe out. I can even let the night be the good counsel that is. I can sleep on this, literally. And then when I feel that I'm back to myself, my real self. I am aligned with myself. I'm not overpowered by this very strong energy within me, but I feel that I can use my choices. I can respond in the way I choose to, with the right tone, with the right words, with the right voice. I have clarity, I have perspective to what is. Then I am in my power. Then I am conscious, I'm aware. I am the one choosing. And if it is to choose anger as a way to set up the boundaries, to push the limits, to communicate, then be it. But I'm aware of it. I choose it versus being chosen by it. So again, when we talk about anger, about good or bad, right or wrong, it's way, way beyond that. Just like any state of consciousness below below courage, below the levels of 200, we tend to see things in good or bad, right or wrong, who is right, who is wrong, who is better, who is worse. Sometimes that gets us trapped into the victimhood position where again, when we identify ourselves with our feelings, I don't want to be an angry person. I don't want to be like my abusers. I don't want to shout. And then I choose to be the one that it's in the other side of the equation, in the victimhood posture. Now, mind you, whether on anger or any of the states below 200, we are all in the victimhood domain anyway. So even when we choose anger, we are still in the victimhood domain because we believe that others, they make me angry. I didn't do anything. If they wouldn't do that, if they would stop doing that, if they would listen to me, if they would respect me, if they would do what I want them to do, I wouldn't be angry. But that's very false because in the states below 200, including anger, we don't see the truth. We are blinded by our perceptions. We perceive, we don't see. We are in falsehood, not in truth. Okay? We are in non-integrity versus integrity, starting with the state of courage. So these are some aspects of the anger state. Again, the purpose, the function of the anger state, developmentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, is to the purpose of this stage is to learn, to connect, to align with, to be truly in our power versus using force, clarifying, distinguishing between force and power, and choosing through inner power versus force. Thank you.